What's up everybody? Today is a very special video where I will be ranking all the parks at Walt Disney World. These are just the Orlando parks and the water parks are not included. It just wouldn't be fair to rank them against the regular parks. These are also just my personal opinions and this list was incredibly difficult to make. I had to change my order around a few different times. Anyway, let's start off with my last place pick. Unfortunately, as of right now in the Orlando lineup, there is an obvious last place. I hate to say it, but Animal Kingdom is our number 4 spot. The park itself is beautiful and there's tons of great theming. You could seriously have a great time here just walking around, looking at the greenery and of course the animals. The Tree of Life is an excellent centerpiece and makes a perfect central hub on Discovery Island. The breathtaking sights make this park one of a kind and it is without a doubt the most beautiful park I've ever visited. The food at Animal Kingdom is also pretty good, especially for theme park food. It's not as good as Epcot or anything, but there's some very unique menu items here that are worth trying, especially in Pandora where you can find hamburger pods, which are my go-to. Tusker House is also very highly regarded, however I wasn't a big fan personally. After all these positives, you may be wondering why this park is in last place. I mean, anywhere that has a rainforest cafe can't possibly be bad, right? While I wouldn't call this park bad or anywhere near it, there is one major flaw that is impossible to overlook. The lack of rides at Animal Kingdom brings down the park all the way to the bottom of the list. There's of course standouts, with Expedition Everest being my favorite Disney coaster of all time, and you can't forget Kilimanjaro Safaris where you can see so many different animals in the African savanna. This is where the list of amazing rides ends for me. Depending on who you are, Flight of Passage may also be a standout, and having a third great ride can really catapult the park up a notch. But for me, I've never been a fan of Flight of Passage. To me, it just feels like Soarin' with extra steps, and I'm not the biggest fan of screen-based attractions. However, I do enjoy Navi River Journey. It's very pretty, and the animatronic alone makes it worth the price of admission. Other than the animatronic, it's really nothing spectacular. And then there's of course the elephant in the room, or should I say the dinosaur in the room. With Dinosaur being removed and Tropical Americas being under construction, there are only 5 actual rides at Animal Kingdom and only 2 of them I feel are outstanding. There's also the fact that the park closes at 6 p.m. as to not disturb the animals later at night, so seeing this park at night is exceedingly rare despite how beautiful it is when it's dark. The layout of the park is also not the greatest. All of the lands are connected to Discovery Island, which like I said, Discovery Island is nice and I love the Tree of Life, but this means to get from point A to point B, you are going to be walking a lot. That's the case with most theme parks, but the lack of rides and things to do makes the distance between them seem so much bigger. Whenever Tropical Americas opens, we can reevaluate Animal Kingdom, but for now, it's last place. I have flip-flopped this list around, and I feel like every ranking I come up with is the wrong answer, and as much as it pains me to do, I am placing Hollywood Studios in 3rd place. Despite having my favorite ride ever built in the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, the park has some issues. The park's positives and negatives are a little complex, so how about we start with the good things about Hollywood Studios. Like I said, Tower of Terror is basically a masterpiece. The theming is second to none, and the ride is genuinely scary. I don't typically scream on rides, but on Tower of Terror I don't really have a choice. The randomized drops still get me every time to this day. And how could I forget the pre-show, which is amongst the most iconic of all time. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is also a highlight in the park, with Rise of the Resistance being the greatest dark ride ever built. The immersion of Rise of the Resistance is unmatched, and when I'm on this thing, I seriously wonder how they even pulled it off. Rock and Roller Coaster is getting pretty rough, and I'm gonna miss the Aerosmith version, but it's a perfectly good coaster, and it's very thrilling, especially for a Disney ride. Over in Toy Story Land, Toy Story Mania is my favorite shooting dark ride out there, and it gets really competitive. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is also a highlight, and I gotta say, I'm a pretty big fan of this one despite my disappointment when they removed the Great Movie Ride. The park's food is also way better than typical theme park food. Shout out to the tachos at Woody's Lunchbox. Those things are delicious. Now let's get to the negatives. Toy Story Land is not it, at least not for me. I'm sure kids will love it. But Slinky Dog Dash is just boring, and Alien Swirling Saucers is just downright terrible. Smuggler's Run and Galaxy's Edge is also not that great, and I really wish there was a better ride here to complement Rise of the Resistance. That's kind of where my ride complaints end, but the flaws with Hollywood Studios run deeper than just a few weak rides. The park's layout leads to congested pathways and dead ends, which would be a problem at any theme park, but this is Disney we're talking about. When this place is crowded, it is crowded. Another thing is that the park's identity does not make any sense, and it feels like the park has no idea what it wants to be. The Great Movie Ride was perfect to tie everything together and made perfect sense to be in the Chinese theater. But now it's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is fantastic, but they could have kept the Great Movie Ride and had this somewhere else. The backlot tour also added a vibe to the park that just isn't there anymore, and again, tied everything together. It just seems like one of those situations where they throw a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Fortunately, a lot of the stuff does end up sticking, but it just doesn't mesh well together. For example, Galaxy's Edge is pretty awesome, but now you have a Star Wars ride and Star Tours not in the Star Wars land. It's just a ton of little things like this that lead me to put this in third. However, there are plenty of great rides here which almost, but not quite, make up for Hollywood Studios' shortcomings. Now we really get into controversial territory with what is going to be number 2, but before we get there, I would like to ask that if you've made it this far and you like what you've seen, please consider hitting that subscribe button to help out the channel. It would be much appreciated. Coming in at number 2, we have Epcot. Epcot is once again one of the most visually stunning parks out there, and depending on who you are, this could easily be number 1. The ride lineup is phenomenal, with of course the centerpiece of the park being Spaceship Earth. The Epcot Ball is one of the most iconic sights in theme park history, really only being rivaled by other Disney park icons. Then you have the fastest ride Disney has ever built with Test Track, which has been recently updated to Test Track 3.0. A huge improvement to the lackluster Test Track 2.0. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind also resides at Epcot and is most people's favorite Disney coaster, but for me it takes second place behind Everest. The theming of Cosmic Rewind is incredible, and the music on the ride makes this thing infinitely re-rideable. Soarin' is also nice to have in the lineup, even though screen-based rides aren't my favorite. And Living with the Land is one of the most enjoyable experiences on Disney property. It's both entertaining and educational. I make sure to ride this thing at least once every time I visit Epcot. Unfortunately, the Seas with Nemo and Friends is my least favorite ride in all of Disney World, other than, like I said, alien swirling saucers. But moving on to the World Showcase is when we get a little bit weaker in the ride department. Remy's Ratatouille Adventure relies too heavily on screens and is just not my favorite. It feels outdated despite the fact that it's so new, and this is because it's a clone of the Ratatouille ride at Disneyland Paris. Again, not a bad ride, it's just not my favorite. Then you have Frozen Ever After, which once again is just not my favorite. I much preferred Maelstrom, but I'm sure the younger audience will really enjoy it. I'm glad they fixed the creepy animatronic faces as well. That was a nice touch. The Grand Fiesta Tour starring the Three Caballeros is probably my favorite ride in the World Showcase, but that's mostly due to nostalgia and how much I enjoy the Mexico Pavilion. Where the World Showcase really shines is with its entertainment outside of the rides and of course the food. The World Showcase has food from all over the world, and there are many stands that will have food of smaller portions so you can sample all kinds of different stuff. I usually go for the food at the France Pavilion, but I've always wanted to eat at the Mexico Pavilion's indoor restaurant. The atmosphere in there seems incredible. The American Pavilion has a barbecue restaurant if you're a bit more picky. The food there is really good too, and there's really something here for everyone to enjoy. There are some highlights when it comes to food for the rest of Epcot as well, especially at the Land Pavilion. A portion of the food served there is actually showcased on Living with the Land, which is really cool. Epcot also has shows that are really nice, like the American Adventure and Turtle Talk with Crush, and there are of course plenty others as well. Epcot also has some not so great aspects. Many people absolutely hate Mission Space and label it as the worst Disney ride ever created. While I disagree and actually enjoy it, I see why most people hate it. Figment is also in dire need of an update, and while I like it personally, it seriously does need some work. And like I said earlier, the Nemo ride is downright terrible. Other than those minor nitpicks, Epcot is almost a perfect park, and I could go on all day about how much I love Epcot. The only reason it's not number 1 is because it's hard to compete with the number 1 spot, which is of course Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is basically the perfect theme park, and I will go ahead and get my only complaint out of the way right off the bat. I wish there was another major thrill coaster here. Tron is of course very thrilling and absolutely awesome, even though it's a little short. I would love to see something here with an inversion or a few launches or something like that. The only other complaint I may have is the crowds, but that really depends on the day. Other than that, you have so many different rides to pick from, ranging from classic dark rides all the way to modern roller coasters. We would be here all day if I were to talk about every ride offered at Magic Kingdom, so we will stick to just the highlights. The amount of rides here in itself is already a plus. Over in Liberty Square, you have the opening day Haunted Mansion, which is an absolute classic and one of my favorite dark rides of all time. Its balance between comedic and scary is done so well, and the sets create a perfect atmosphere. Over in Frontierland, you have both Big Thunder Mountain and Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is an incredible 1-2 punch. Don't get me wrong, I miss Splash Mountain, but Tiana's is awesome as well. The music on Tiana's is incredible, and it was stuck in my head all day the first time I wrote it. Of course, over in Adventureland, you have Pirates of the Caribbean, which is another classic, even though it's much shorter than Disneyland's. It still provides an immersive atmosphere, and the smell of the water and the fire just scratches an itch in my brain. Heading over to my favorite theme park land ever, we have Tomorrowland, home to yet another classic, Space Mountain. The music on Space Mountain is probably my favorite music for any queue ever, and there's a reason I use it in the background of pretty much every one of my videos. The ride itself is awesome, and I love being in the pitch black darkness not knowing where I'm going. Tomorrowland is also home to the People Mover, which takes you around Tomorrowland and actually goes through other rides in the land, including Space Mountain and Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. The People Mover is one of those rides that you could ride all day and never get bored. Tron is also here, which like I said is short but happens to feature one of my favorite coaster launches of all time. For some reason, it just feels so powerful. I would also like to throw a shout out to the Carousel of Progress, which I have to experience every time I'm at Magic Kingdom for some reason. It just feels so historic and special. Other than the rides, the entertainment here is also spectacular with constant parades and live performances. The nighttime fireworks show, Happily Ever After, is pretty awesome, and it pays tribute to many classic Disney movies. However, this is just personal preference, but I prefer Epcot's show over Magic Kingdom's. One last thing I'd like to touch on is the food, and again, I feel like Epcot does this a little better. But the food really isn't a focal point of Magic Kingdom, so Epcot having better food makes sense. Starlight Cafe is classic, and while it's just basic theme park food, Sunny Eclipse adds a lot to the experience. Also, the Sully Slushie is a must-try for anyone who likes slushies or really anyone who likes sweets. The only sit-down restaurant I've had at Magic Kingdom is the Skipper Canteen because we usually don't go for sit-down restaurants, but it was absolutely incredible. I would highly recommend it if you like sit-down dinners, and even if you don't, because the food is that good. The views in this park are of course classic, and Cinderella's Castle is the most iconic sight at any theme park really ever. It all comes together to make a complete package that no other park offers. That's all for my ranking. Let me know what your ranking would be in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. We are so close to 2,000 subs, and I can't wait to hit that milestone. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.